and welcome to Thumbing Through Yesterday, the podcast where we take our favorite books down from the shelf, dust them off, and remind ourselves why we love them. My name's Tom Galley, and joining me today is Tony Pasculi.
Thanks, Tom.
And today we are selecting a book that, I selected this one. It was a favorite. Robert Heinlein's The Cat Who Walks Through Walls.
Yeah, this is an interesting book. We're both fans of Heinlein, obviously. We've had Heinlein on the podcast many, many times. I think I remember that you saying you hadn't read The Number of the Beast. Am I mistaken?
You are correct. I have not read The Number of the Beast.
Okay, that baffles me. So tell me what you like about this book, having not read The Number of the Beast.
What drove me back to it is, of course, we know I'm a huge fan of The Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Yes.
It may well be my favorite Heinlein.
Yeah.
The ostensible plot of this book involves a rescue mission to retrieve the computer Mike.
Yes.
Now, there are a couple of other things that I remembered about this that I kind of thought I liked. There was a thing with a rental spaceship, which turns out to actually be there. And based just on that vague recollection, it's like, I remember liking that book, and I remember liking these things about that book. And it turns out that those two things together comprise very, very little of the book. This is not the book that I thought it was.
So how did this book hold up for you on reread?
I did not care for this book. I did not care for this book at all. So there is an absurd amount of abstract flirtation going on.
Ridiculous.
There are just pages and pages and pages of who is descended from who, who's married to who, who's fucking who, how often these overlap. So if you were to rip all those pages out, you would be left with a 20-page leaflet that includes the cool crash landing spaceship scene and the 2 pages of the rescue of Mike the computer.
I like the opening a lot. I think this is a really strong start to a novel. As a guy's on a date, and then his date excuses herself to the restroom, and then while she's up, a mysterious man sits down and says, "I have to talk to you about Walker Evans. I'm a friend of Walker Evans," and then he gets shot. And then the waiters all sort of conspire to make that body vanish immediately. And then he and his date are suddenly on the run, and they get married very abruptly. And then a whole bunch of things happen to them. But that beginning is amazing. But then everything after that is just is a bunch of episodic nonsense, which doesn't come back and is no longer relevant.
A bunch of episodic nonsense, yes.
And
that's a good description.
And this is the part that surprises me, and then the book disappears up its own ass because we get into the world as myth, which Heinlein establishes in The Number of the Beast and is much more thoroughly explained there. And here, I can't imagine reading this book without knowing that book first, because it's just bewildering. If you have, I don't know, were you not bewildered?
I did spend a fair bit of time bewildered, mostly bewildered by what's supposed to be going on.
Yeah.
I was bewildered a lot. Like I said, there are these little episodes of action. There's little episodes where things happen, and there's no tension to any of it.
Yeah.
And at one point they're in mid gunfight and they're pausing for flirtatious banter, and it's like no.
Yeah.
Not even James Bond does that. No, you're in the middle of a gunfight. She's shot, or he's shot. One of you has got a bullet hole in you, and you're pausing for flirtatious banter.
It's a lot of this reads like a parody of Heinlein. It's like Time Enough for Love, and then just take the silliest parts and make them maximally silly. It's disappointing. I mean, I remember enjoying this the first time I read it, and I think I enjoyed it again the second time I read it. And this time through, I'm just like, oof, I would never recommend this to someone if they hadn't encountered Heinlein before. I would just say, save this one for last, maybe.
Yeah, and my feeling is that had I read A Number of the Beast, I would have some recognition of more characters as we got later in the book. But
yeah, certainly. So, did you read a synopsis of Number of the Beast? Do you know who
no.
Gay Deceiver and Hilda and Dee Dee and Zeb and okay,
not a one.
All right.
Maybe I should look into that.
You should. I think you should. I think you owe it to yourself to read Number of the Beast at some point. I'm not going to pick it, though. I'm just warning you. It's not my favorite Heinlein. Got many, many more Heinleins to pick ahead of that one. But it's that like, here's the first chapter engages me. And it's like, wow, what a first chapter. What a strong opening. And then, we get into nonsense pretty quickly. Number of the Beast is really, really strong for, I would say, the first third of the book. And then it gets into nonsense. But the Number of the Beast is what establishes Heinlein's sort of world as myth, which they talk about in this book, that the world has been created by fiction writers. And you can they invent a way to travel between dimensions, and you can travel to dimensions which are created by different authors. And so they actually literally travel to Oz, which is why this 4-person spaceship, which they don't talk about how that happens, it's why it has a giant bathroom in it. And why it can take more than 4 passengers, even though there's only 4 seats. Because Ozma of Oz says, you need a bathroom in your spaceship. Boom, now you have one. And that's why there's a reference to, at one point, they give someone a towel to cover up a wound that they have. And they say, don't be surprised if it disappears when you leave the ship, because we've never taken one outside before, and we don't know if it'll continue to exist. Because it's a magical towel that goes with the magical bathroom. There's a never-ending supply of towels in that bathroom. None of that gets explained here.
I had no idea that that was essential.
Yes,
pre-required. There was a prerequisite to reading this book.
The last third of this book is like catching up on 200 issues of comic continuity, just in a couple of pages. It's insane.
Yeah. Now, Lazarus Long in this is despicable.
Oh, he is.
And my recollection of Lazarus Long is that he's curmudgeonly and irascible and often hard to get along with, but he's not despicable. He's not devoid of redeeming characteristics, and he often does the right thing, although it might take him a while to do it.
Yeah.
In this book, there is nothing redeeming about him, although everyone else protests that he's got a heart of gold.
Yes.
Never once do we see an inkling of it. He is just a shit completely throughout.
There's 2 reasons for that. One, they talk about how he's due for rejuvenation, so he's a little bit crankier than normal. But 2, this is written in the first person, and that first person being Richard Ames or Colin Campbell or whatever his name actually is. And they're setting him up to have this clash with Lazarus all the way through the book. They're establishing there's going to be this massive clash, even though you don't get Lazarus until the end. Because this whole exercise has been about recruiting him for this rescuing Adam, the Mycroft computer, including the mysterious date and the mysterious murder, which it turns out his new bride is the one that killed that guy.
Yeah.
And the marriage is a plan to trap him into agreeing to this thing, although she falls in love with him anyway because it's a Heinlein novel. I think we can safely say that this is not this is an unreliable narrator. And that his opinion of Lazarus Long is his opinion of Lazarus Long, and it's very, very colored by his experience with Lazarus. And, of course, the big topper is that he's Lazarus's son and doesn't know that. Yeah. So, and that's because this guy is also an asshole. This guy's an asshole. He's an absolute dick. He's married to his bride for like a couple of days, and then they're verbally spanking some guy that's tagging along with them. And she says, he says, back me up on this to his wife. And she's like, no, I think we should be nicer. And he's like, back me up or else. She's like, or else what? And he's like, what or else? Get walking. And so
Walk
she does.
away and don't turn back.
What the hell? What the hell? Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, there's a shortage of likable people in this.
Yes, there are. Although they all act like they're likable. They're all just falling in love and kissing each other all the time. And
I think we're expected to like them, honestly.
But we don't. We do not like them.
No, we don't. All right. So the 2 things that I did like, right? The rescue of Mike, which again is literally the last 2 pages and goes unresolved.
Yeah.
But the rental spaceship, I thought that was just, I like that whole setup, right? They're trying to flee. They're in an orbital station around the moon or at one of the Lagrange points, and they are wanted. They are very wanted. And there happen to be just a ton of Shriners around. So all the hotels are taken. They can't hide anywhere. All of the taxis are booked. They can't book passage. The only thing they can do is there's one spaceship that managed to be unrented, and it's from Fly By Night Rentals or whatever the name of the place is, and they sell them
Yeah.
the spaceship. And they say, if you bring it back, we'll refund most of the money. And they sell them this very used, very beat to hell spaceship at new spaceship prices. I don't remember what it's, a Beamer or something like that, a Mercedes. I mean, it has a name brand we would recognize.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole thing falls apart and they go to crash. And because they're both actually competent human beings when they're not engaged in ritual banter, they manage to survive it, which leads to further hijinks with him being misrecognized as a Shriner by the guy that saves them. But that little bit I like. That little self-contained unit there was pretty cool. I thought that was really decent sci-fi. A surprising amount of like orbital mechanics for a Heinlein book.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's one of the things Heinlein gets into. One of my favorite, it's a very small bit, but they take a train, which is a subsurface train, and what they have done is they've carved out a tunnel below the surface of the moon, which exactly matches the orbit of the moon. Mm-hmm. So it's a geodesic. So you can just like give this thing a push at the beginning, and it coasts all the way through this tunnel for 0 energy and arrives at the end. It's the most efficient form of ground transport possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. But that's just an aside. But Heinlein loves to do. In fact, in this book, he actually says, I'm going to talk about ballistics for about 3 pages. You can skip this. Yeah. And then he does.
He does. Yep. He does get into that. So that was fun. I guess we have to talk about Pixel. I mean, we can't talk about a book called The Cat Who Walks Through Walls and not acknowledge
He's
Pixel
barely
the
in the
cat.
book. He's barely in the book.
He's barely in the book.
He doesn't come
Mainly
in
he's there
until-
to make us feel bad at the end.
Yeah. But he literally does walk through walls. He's one of those cats who, you put him in a locked room and he gets out without, he just blips through things.
Yep. He shows up on the starship, and the starship itself doesn't know where he came from.
Yeah.
He wasn't there when they left. It's pretty sure about that.
Yeah. I think Pixel appears in another book. Have you read To Sail Beyond the Sunset?
That sounds familiar.
So it's another one of these books. It's another World as Myth book. But the bulk of it, other than being this sort of adventure story of recruiting this guy to go on this mission, the bulk of it is a flashback to Maureen's past. Maureen is Lazarus's mother.
Okay.
And it's just about her growing up in rural Iowa, I want to say. I forget exactly where she grows up. And what that was like, and having a father who's very Heinlein-esque father, who's very sex positive and says, go out and have sex with whoever you want. I don't care. And you can tell me about it if you want to. But you need to be careful and you need to not get caught. Don't let anybody see you because people here will not understand. Yeah. So we're still going to go to church on Sunday, even though we don't believe in that nonsense. But just to put in appearances, and then you go off and do what you want to do. Yeah. They call it appeasing Mrs. Grundy. Yeah. As long as you appease Mrs. Grundy, you can get away with whatever you want. Yeah. So that is a much more fun book than this, I think, because that historical stuff is so much more grounded than the episodic nonsense in this one, and is full of just wonderful historical detail, and putting Heinlein's particular mores, in that context rather than a future context where they're just completely unanchored is more interesting, I think. And I think sort of explains a little bit more about him and where he got his ideas from, of coming from a more oppressive environment and rebelling against it. But then it does get into the sort of, time travel and multiple universes nonsense at the end. So,
well, I think that's probably the last time that I've read that book.
yeah.
I don't see picking it up again. It left a bad taste in my mouth.
It was real. I was, because I remember enjoying it before. I was really looking forward to reading it. And as I'm reading, I'm like, oh no. Oh no.
Where's the actual story in this book?
Because I've read it a couple of times. This is at least my 3rd time reading this book. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I cheated. I think I've only read it once before.
Yeah. And I really expected Pixel to be a much bigger player in this.
Yeah. Well, again, I was really hoping it was more of a sequel to The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And I guess technically it is because his wife ends up being one of the characters from Harsh Mistress, but it doesn't really play into anything.
Well, one of the things this book does, for better or worse, is it ties together almost all of Heinlein's other fiction. So Hazel Stone comes from a book called The Rolling Stones, and that whole bit about them writing radio serials with her grandson Buster, that's all laid out in that book. That's a juvenile. It ties in, of course, the number of the beast. It ties in Time Enough for Love because Lazarus and
Right.
Methuselah's children and a lot of the future history stuff all gets tied in there. What else gets tied in? There's another one. Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah. So, Stranger in a Strange Land. Jubal Harshaw
Oh, right,
is
right,
from
right,
Stranger in
right.
a Strange Land. Yeah.
It took me a while. I was like, I know that name. Why
Yes.
do I know that name?
Yeah,
It took a
yeah.
while for it to click.
Oh, and Glory Road, which we've read for the
Right.
podcast. Star and Rufo show up in this as well. Yeah. I don't know. It's something that, very prolific writers like to do at the end of their career, I think. Stephen King did it with the Dark Tower series. He made himself a character in his own book in Volume 6 of the Dark Tower. And then he incorporated every other book he'd ever written into the Dark Tower universe. And it's just like, oh no.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah. So, okay, interesting. Very surprising to read a Heinlein novel and not be like thrilled.
Yeah, it's. I guess he's capable of disappointing me. I've
Oh,
learned
he is.
That.
How much of Heinlein have you read?
Because
I would not even call this his worst book, not by a long shot.
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I think that I've read a lot, but I don't know what percentage of his body of work I've read.
Okay. Have you read Farnham's Freehold?
I'm going to say no.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. You can skip it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then have you read, there's a book called Sixth Column, I want to say, which was not his idea. I think his editor at the time wanted him to write it, and it's pretty awful. One of the things I remember about it is the heroes are all Caucasian, and they're getting invaded by an Asian nation, and so they invent a ray that only targets Asians, so white people can walk through it and Asians get killed. Yeah, and it's just like, ugh, this is just... That wasn't his idea. His editor came up with that. His editor, who was famously a racist. And it's just like, oh, this is so uncomfortable and creepy. But also it's just a bad book. Yeah, so, yeah.
This has definitely fallen from my list of favorites, real and imagined.
All right. What's sad about this is most of his bad books are early in his career, and this is I think the last book he wrote.
It's definitely very late in his career. I don't know if it's the very last one or not.
Yeah. It's not the last one he published, but I think it's the last one he wrote. Two others were published after this, but he wrote them before this one. Are you looking it up?
I'm looking at the Wikipedia article, and it doesn't say that.
You have to look at, so it's not in Wikipedia. You have to look at Wikipedia Robert Heinlein bibliography, and then it lists all his books in order. Yeah. So he wrote Number of the Beast in 1980, and then he wrote Friday, which was so much more fun than Number of the Beast, problematic in its own way. And then he wrote Job, which is an interesting book, but it's not available as an ebook. And then he wrote To Sail Beyond the Sunset, and then he wrote this. And I think it was just like people were excited to have another Heinlein novel.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of inertia there. It's like, he's written so many great things. I love him so much. Of course I'm going to buy the next one.
Yeah. Some of these cover quotes are ridiculous, though. He is, if possible, a greater genius than ever before, this time by giving us a thinking man's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That is not how I would describe this book.
Yeah. No, very much not.
Dialogue as witty as Oscar Wilde's? No. Action as rollicking as Edgar Rice Burroughs? Sure. Satire as spicy as Jonathan Swift's? Yeah, I think it misses the mark. That was the New York Times. Yeah, I think he was really coasting at this point in his career.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to answer that. There's just too much going on here.
Yeah.
Even on the Wikipedia page listing his bibliography, it's got publications through 2017. So
yeah, those were books that he wrote earlier. One of them was We the Living, which he wrote considerably earlier and no one would publish, and they published it after his death, I believe. And another one is an interesting, also published after his death, The Pursuit of the Pankara. So Number of the Beast, which again, if you're going to read this, you have to read Number of the Beast first. Number of the Beast established this world as myth, and he wrote it twice. So the first third of the book is identical, and then at one point, these people discover they have this time-traveling, space-traveling technology and embedded in this gay deceiver, and they go to Mars. And the books completely diverge at that point. And I've read The Pursuit of the Bank Karen. I literally couldn't tell you anything else about it, other than at that point, it's a very different book than The Number of the Beast. So they call it a parallel novel. Yeah. So
Okay. Interesting.
But again, that came out after his death. And it's not clear whether he wrote that and said, no, I want to do this other thing, and then pivoted back to Number of the Beast, or whether he wrote it and intended to publish it at some point, or what he was planning to do with it. They just found it in his notes and said, yeah, it's more Heinlein. Let's publish it. So.
All right, so The Cat Who Walks Through Walls was published in 85. To Sail Beyond the Sunset was published in 87.
Oh, in 87. So this wasn't his last. It's the second to last.
Next to the last.
Okay.
And then after that, you get into the 2000s with, I guess, either posthumously published or other people gathering stuff published.
Yeah. I would read To Sail Beyond the Sunset again. I have fond memories of that book. I had fond memories of this one too, but they were mistaken.
Should have left well enough alone.
I do like the structure of this is very weird, as we mentioned. I mean, it's a lot like a bunch of stuff that's irrelevant, and you get to the end and you realize how irrelevant it was, because a lot of it was engineered to force him into agreeing to do this mission, which you don't even find out about the mission and what he's being recruited for until like 3/4 of the way through the book.
Yep.
And then it's just basically one long argument about why he doesn't want to do the mission. And then it's literally, like you say, 2 pages at the end where they go on the mission and everybody is dead or dying. But that is a fascinating wrap up to this whole thing. It's a very unusual structure where it's just like, what? Okay, here we go. Now we're starting the story. It's over.
Yep.
No resolution. Yeah.
Yep. I was sad. I wanted to see Mike in some way, shape, or form, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Pixel comes back into Sail Beyond the Sunset, but I couldn't swear to it.
Enough said?
Enough said.
Enough said. Okay, what's up next then?
Up next is a book called The Card Turner by Louis Sachar. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. The guy that wrote Holes. It's a good book by the guy that wrote Holes.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.